Thank you, Todd. That was wonderful. If you guys don't mind, it's almost exactly to the minute. If you don't mind, let's have about 30 seconds of silence. Thank you.
She was the
All right, thank you guys, and good morning. This is thank y'all. I'm so happy you guys are here. And I know this woman is vibrant. She's exciting, and I'm excited to hear her story. But she's actually brought the crowd. I don't know if y'all felt it or not, but usually we have about 200 people here, and I think we probably have closer to 250 or 260. But I think she brought about 50 people herself. So, I think she has her own people. So I think she was going to bring up a crowd. So. She was born in Okinawa, Japan. See, I can speak Japanese. And she was from American family that was stationed there. She attended 9 schools in 9 years. She's lived in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and now Georgia. She's a graduate of Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. She has a bachelor's in business and a minor in Bible. She accepted Jesus at the age of 4, and she heard his voice at the age of 19. She's been married to her husband Joe for 19 years, and she's looking pretty forward to her 20th anniversary. So I can say you're still a newlywed, so you're good. And her and her husband have 3 wonderful children. They've lived in Noonan for 19 years. That's the longest time she's ever lived anywhere. So I'm hoping she continues to live there. She's a member of Griffin First Assembly of God in Noonan. This is where the story gets good. She's had 14 surgeries or procedures in 14 years. And she has survived 3 different cancers: colon cancer, melanoma, and thyroid. She's currently writing a book about how God helped her to get through everything. She's also writing a movie script with a professional screenwriter called The Vessel. Her desire is for her to bring hope in a gentle way and invite people to a relationship with her God. She believes that if she can get through hard things, she can help other people get through hard things. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Miss Vanessa Todhunter.
Thank y'all so much for coming, and thank you, Mr. Hurt. He is a family friend, but he's also the band director at Trinity Christian School, and he teaches Bree the flute and Cameron the clarinet. So I asked him to come today, with it being September 11th, to share something patriotic, with it being Patriot Day. So I was definitely thinking about that. Deborah and I talked about it. I don't know why God chose September 11th for me, because this has been scheduled since last year, but just thinking about we have freedom in Christ, and I'm so thankful we have freedom in this country to worship the Lord and to have a gathering like this where we can just lift up his name and talk about how good he is. And I want to thank Rick so much for that introduction, because I didn't want to take the time to share all those details. It's a big testimony of what God has done in my life, and I'm thankful because I want to get right to the heart of my testimony. I didn't practice with the microphone. So, and I'm a little bit shorter. Okay. Do you know how to do that? Can I hold it? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I want to get right to the heart of my testimony, which is how God got me through 14 surgeries and procedures, including 3 different cancers. And I'm sorry for the notes, but I'll go on for 2 hours, so this is really for y'all. My favorite thing to share, though, is my relationship with God and how he was with me through everything and the supernatural experiences that I had during these trials. When Joe and I took our vows to love each other in sickness and in health, we had no idea what we were saying. Those vows were definitely tested, and I can share with joy that my husband kept those to me through the very worst of times. We'd been married for 3 years, and we were ready to add to our family. These are the kids right here, by the way. I'd been having pain in my abdomen, so I went to my general practitioner. He felt my stomach and gave me the news that I wanted to hear, but that I knew wasn't true. You're pregnant. I was not. I felt my heart melt inside of me when I realized there was something in my uterus, but it wasn't a baby. In the spring of 2004, I had a softball-sized fibroid tumor removed from my uterus. And I do apologize to the men, and we'll try to give as little graphic information this morning as possible. This was the first of 14 surgeries and procedures that I was going to have over the next 14 years. While the doctor was performing the surgery, he discovered that I was covered up with endometriosis, which was causing severe pain and also keeping us from becoming pregnant. The treatment was to put me into menopause for 6 months. I had to have Lupron injections once a month. It was not fun to go through menopause either time that I did. At the end of this treatment, I had a follow-up appointment with my OBGYN. The night before, I had some heavy bleeding when I used the restroom. There was no pain, just blood that filled the toilet bowl. My OB wanted me to follow up with a gastroenterologist. Several days later, I had an appointment set up and a colonoscopy was ordered. It seemed like a big procedure, but I didn't want something to come up when I was 7 months pregnant. We were trying to have a baby. I woke up from anesthesia to my husband telling me that I had a mass in my colon. I kept falling asleep from the anesthesia, so he had to tell me 3 times. Several days later, I got the phone call that it was adenocarcinoma, colon cancer. But God had me covered. My mom and dad's pastor, Pete Mullins, had woken up that morning with an urgency to come pray for me. So he and his wife, Sharon, were there with me, as well as my sister-in-law, Annie. And when I hung up the phone and looked at the 3 people standing there that God had sent to minister to me right at that moment, and they began to pray for me. A week later, I had half of my colon removed. The surgery was successful, and I did not have to have chemo or any other treatment. I asked my surgeon how long it would be until I could get pregnant, and he said 6 weeks. So 6 weeks later, I was pregnant. God gave my mom this baby's name, Cameron, and he said it meant he came in God's timing. I called him my angel because if it weren't for me wanting to have him, I would have never found out about the colon cancer. Once I had scheduled the colonoscopy, I had stopped bleeding, so I could have easily just canceled it. I had a few complications with my pregnancy, like high blood pressure and gestational diabetes, and also pain that caused me to throw up because it was so intense. But that wonderful day came. There's Pete Mullins. I was looking for you. This is the one that prayed for me that day. But that wonderful day came in September of 2005 when Cameron came into this world. Again, trying to be sensitive about the details, but let's just say if I was giving birth in Little House on the Prairie times, I would not be standing here telling my story today. My doctor had to save my life. While I was in labor, my dad looked at my arm and said, "You should get that mole checked out." And I said, "I'm a little busy, Dad." Maybe next week. So the next week, I went to the dermatologist to have a biopsy. A few days later, I came home to a message on my answering machine from my doctor that said, "Call me back and tell them you want to be put straight through to me. You don't want to leave a message." And I thought, oh, that's nice. They call and give you the results themselves. That's not nice. That means something's wrong. And there was something wrong. I had melanoma. If you don't know, that's the kind of skin cancer that gets in your bloodstream and spreads through your body and eventually kills you. But God was watching out for me again. God was watching out. It was contained within the skin and had not metastasized. When my little angel was 11 weeks old, I had it removed. The doctor cut like this and pulled it together, and I looked like Frankenstein. But his little head fit right in the crook of my arm, in between my elbow and the stitches, so I could give him his bottle. That little tiny head. Oh, I've lost my place. Okay. When my little angel was 6 months old, I had a follow-up appointment with my colon surgeon. He said that an umbilical hernia that he had repaired, and that means from birth, that he had repaired during my colon surgery had come open. And I said, it doesn't hurt that bad. I'm not going to do anything about it. And he said, well, you could sneeze and your insides could fall out. So I guess I'm going to do something about it. What they failed to tell me was that I wouldn't be able to pick up my now 7-month-old son for 6 weeks afterwards. My sweet mom, right there. She had to come every single day at 7:30 in the morning and stay until 6 o'clock at night when Joe got home. I have said through all these surgeries, our lives made possible by God and Mimi's help, and Grandpa. So I had the hernia repair in April of 2006. About a year later, I received a letter in the mail that said the patch that they used had been recalled. I said, it's not a car seat. I can't just pull it out. Wanting to have a little baby girl, Brady, we loaded up our car to travel to North Carolina to have a consultation with the surgeon who had developed the patch. Surgeons were rolling them up and jamming them down ports, and it was weakening them, and it was causing them to break and slash through people's intestines and killing them. Sorry, that was too graphic. God was watching out for me again. I had my sweet little girl, Bree, with no complications from the patch. I didn't stretch there, so I didn't have the cute pregnant belly, but I said that's okay because the babies are cute. When the time came to have Bree, I had a difficult time giving birth, and I tore very badly. Yes, that's a nice way to describe it. I ended up in the hospital for 6 days so they could sew me back up. I had my sweet little newborn baby in a bassinet a few feet away from me, and my sweet husband who took care of her the whole time because I was covered up with IVs. Already knowing the answer, I asked the doctor, so what did you do the last time this happened to somebody? And he said, can't say there was a last time. I didn't think so. They fixed as much as they could, but they couldn't fix it all. And when she was about a year old, I went in to have the rest repaired. I woke up the next day with a low-grade fever, and after 1 million tests, they have no idea why I have it and still have it to this day. I did look it up on the internet, and it said if you have a fever for over a year and is undiagnosed, you probably won't die. So there's that. When Bree was about 2 years old, I had a dream of my husband and I holding a newborn baby in between us and giving it a kiss on either cheek. Aww, what was that? And God said, one more. I said, didn't you see what I went through with the other two? And he said, this is my best for you. And how could I argue with that? I had to have a lot of faith to go through that one. So I say she is my faith with blonde curls running around. Right there. In January 2013, little Alana was born. And although I didn't know it at the time, her name means a little one. And God knew that. She was 4 pounds and 12 ounces when we brought her home. But the nurses had called her strong, feisty, and vigorous. I like those descriptions. So she was healthy. The only complication with her, besides the gestational diabetes for the 3rd time, was that I would have pain on my lower right side of my belly, and it would cause me to have to lay down to get it to stop. I don't know if it was a nerve or what she was sitting on, but I would joke to my husband, I sure hope it doesn't happen in Walmart. Pregnant lady down on aisle 8. Actually, it did strike while I was at a local fall festival, and Joe had to drive our CRV through the crowd to pick me up. That wasn't embarrassing at all. We decided to mix things up this time and have a C-section. And all went perfectly. The only complication was that I didn't sleep for 6 nights straight at all. Oh, and we were rear-ended on the way home from the hospital. So baby's first ride became baby's first car accident. But again, God was at work because the only thing we wanted and couldn't afford was a new stroller, and it was the only thing that was ruined in the accident. And also a back door for our used van. It had had a bad dent that annoyed my car guy, Joe. So we were both happy. God works everything to good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Not all things are good. They're not, always. But God can work good in any situation. When baby was 6 months old, Joe was on a business trip out of town, which he hardly ever does. I had a severe attack of pain in my stomach, but I couldn't leave my 3 babies to go to the ER, and I couldn't bring them all with me. So I just waited until the next day when Mimi could come and be with them. I sat down in the nurse practitioner's office, and she said, "Do you still have your gallbladder?" The short answer is, I don't anymore. A few weeks later was the 4th of July, and we had spent the day at my parents' house. When we had come home late and very tired, we opened the garage door, and there was water coming out of our house. Oh no. We stepped into about 3 inches of water that went the length of our house. I said, "Who gets water out of carpet?" And my 8-year-old son at the time calmly said, Call Stanley Steamer. Commercials work on that kid. At some point I said, "God, I need a break. Please, just a year with no surgeries, no crazy house floods, please." And he agreed. It was actually about 15 months of just regular normal life with 3 small kids, which means crazy and chaotic, but nothing horrible. In December of 2015, I was at church at a special prayer meeting. I kneeled in the back of the church and was just in God's presence. And he said, "Will you be my vessel?" And I said, "I thought I already was." But it sounded like he was asking me something hard. I said, "Will you help me?" And I heard Jesus and the Holy Spirit both say, "Yes." So I said yes. About a week later, I had a biopsy on some nodules in my thyroid. I had had 2 biopsies before that had come back negative, but this one was horrible. I couldn't even speak for several minutes after. And then I got the call on January 2nd, Happy New Year, from my endocrinologist on her cell phone on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, that's not good. She said, "I'm so sorry. It's thyroid cancer." 3. That makes 3 different cancers. That's not how I saw this going, Lord, when I said I'd be your vessel. On February 2nd, 2016, I had my thyroid removed. The surgeon did not like the margins he got. He said it went all the way up to my trachea. I had to have a radiation treatment. I had to be quarantined for my kids and my cats for 3 days. I stayed in my parents' basement, and Joe had to stay with the kids. One night, Jesus told me, "Satan wasn't after your thyroid. He had tried to take my life through cancer, and he had failed. He had tried to take my children by trying to keep me from having them, and now he was trying to take my voice. But he can't have what's not his." And that's why I'll never stop talking about how good God is and what he has done for me. After 3 days, I came home. Because all the thyroid tissue was completely gone and I wasn't able to take the thyroid hormone replacement for a week, I felt like I was dead. And I told Joe I didn't want to go to the doctor to find that out. I don't blame anybody, but everybody thought that everybody else knew what was going on. And instead of going 2 weeks without a thyroid or thyroid hormone, I went 6. We were trying to work it into everyone's schedule because I couldn't stay at home and Joe had to be with the kids. I laid in my chair and I looked toward the laundry room, wishing I had any life in me to fold laundry. Jesus was right there with me, and he said, "Dead people don't fold laundry." And I said, "I don't want to be dead." He said, "You don't make a very good dead person." And I said, "Because I don't want to be dead." That night, I woke up with a start to something cold being poured inside of me. I woke up and I looked and I saw Jesus standing there with a bucket. When you see things in the spiritual realm, it's very different sometimes. He said, "Is this all right?" And I said, "If it's from you, it is." And so he began to pour. And it was the most refreshing water. It was life. He was pouring living water back into me. And he said, "You were depleted." From the next morning on, I began to feel better. I was able to start taking the thyroid hormone replacement, and it felt like a tiny drop in an empty bucket. But over time, it's now sloshing over, and it feels replenished. During this time in my recovery, I had many supernatural experiences. I think he knew I needed a lot of encouragement, and also I couldn't do much, so I just spent a lot of time in his presence. I would literally crawl up in his lap and hold on to his beard and go to sleep. I've seen Father God. There's a chapter in my book called There's a Santa Claus, and it's not who you think it is. It's Father. He loves the children. He loves to give good gifts. He knows if you've been bad or good. My favorite experience of all was the night I danced on the water with Jesus. On this night, I laid my head on the pillow to go to sleep, and I heard the precious voice of the Holy Spirit say, "We're pushing out into deeper waters." At that moment, I was taken in the Spirit to the edge of a lake. A couple yards in front of me stood Jesus on the water, and I knew he wanted me to go out to him. Oh boy. I looked down, and I took a tentative step and immediately went under the water. The next thing I knew, I was in Jesus' arms, and he was holding me like a husband carries his wife over the threshold. And I looked at him and I said, "That didn't go very well, did it?" He didn't say anything, but he put me back on the shore, and he went out even further away. This time I was determined to go to him. I gathered my wits about me, and I ran. I ran to him, and he caught me up in his arms like a dad catches up his little girl in his arms and swings her around. He swung me around, and I said, "Did I walk on the water?" And he said, "You ran on the water." We began to walk along together on that lake. We held hands, and I twirled around him like a little girl twirls around her dad, walking along. We went on like that for about 10 minutes. We didn't say a single word, but we were just together. After 10 minutes, I looked to my right, and I saw a little boat, and noticed that angels were there ready to take me back to the shore. I didn't want to go. I looked at his face, and he looked sad. He had been wearing a white robe, and now it was covered by a brown burlap cloak. I was in the boat, and he turned and began to walk away with his head down. I was back at the shore. I realized just how far we had walked out on that lake. It was so far. And then I was back in my bed. Why did he look so sad? Was it because he wants to be with us even more than we want to be with him? Was it because he knew how much I still had to go through? Because I still had more to go through. The lake had looked so familiar. I've never been to Israel before, but it looked like somewhere in Israel from different programs that I've seen taped in Israel. I asked him, "What lake was that?" And he said, "Chinnereth." Oh. A year and a half later, while I was writing my book, I decided to look up where Chinnereth was. I typed in, "Where is Chinnereth?" And my jaw dropped when the answer appeared on the screen, the Sea of Galilee. I said, "We danced on the Sea of Galilee." And he said, "I know." He could have just said so. He was so patient to wait a year and a half for me to look into it. But the Bible says it is the glory of kings to search a matter out. He wants us to seek and find. In the fall of 2016, there was a severe drought in Georgia, and also my endocrinologist told me, if you want to know what'll kill you, it's the tumor on your adrenal gland. I went to the grocery store after that appointment, and I saw a friend. She was in line to check out, and I was headed down an aisle, and she said, "So what did the doctor say?" I said, "That I have to have surgery." She said, "So when will you have the surgery?" I said, She said, "What? You're not going to have the surgery?" I said, "Why do I have to have surgery? I'm tired of having surgery. Who's to say that's the last one? Let's just let this thing play out and be done with it." She said, "But your kids." I said, "Oh, play the kid card." My husband didn't push me. He just said, "Well, I don't want you to leave." But he let me make my own decision. He knew I was tired of having surgery after surgery and always recovering. My little boy wanted to sow a seed into a ministry that meant a lot to me. He had $7. He asked me to write on it, "For rain and mom's health." I said, "You don't have to put my health on it. God will take care of me." But he was adamant. And that morning in November, on the way to the hospital, it began to rain, and it hasn't stopped. While laying in the hospital bed, getting ready to be brought back to have my left adrenal gland removed, God said, "You just sleep and let me work." When I woke up in recovery, the surgeon came in and said, "That was easy." I thought, because you're not the one that was doing it. And it wasn't an easy surgery. He had to sever my spleen and go through to my back. I went a year with no issues, and then one afternoon, while having lunch with a friend at Panera Bread, I began to bleed heavily. Golf ball-sized clots. Sorry again. My doctor thought it best to just remove everything. Uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes. So that's what we did, and I went through menopause for the second time. At this point, I have told them that I'm running out of things to give them. I need everything else that I still have. It's been 2 years since my last surgery, and I have been cancer-free for 3. Every morning I take communion and I declare out loud, "By his stripes I am healed." He did a 2-part thing when he died. He won us our salvation, but also our healing. Every morning I declare over myself, I walk in divine healing, health, wellness, and wholeness. I do not walk in sickness, illness, infirmity, and disease, and I refuse to give my life for sickness when Jesus gave his life for me. I learned that last phrase from a man named Henry Groover on Sid Ross's Supernatural, who was healed of stage 5 cancer after declaring that. I want everything you paid for, Jesus. I come into agreement with heaven. I heard Rod Parsley say, when he couldn't speak after having, I think he also had a thyroid surgery, someone asked him if he was healed, why couldn't he speak? And he said, "I don't deal in facts, I deal in truth. The facts may be that I can't speak, but the truth is that I am healed." I come into agreement with what heaven says about me, and that is, by his stripes I am healed. In my hot mess, God is helping me. He doesn't expect perfection. He's perfect. He just wants our availability, our obedience, faithfulness, and our love in return. I give him my mess for his peace and joy and strength and love. He always gets the raw end of the deal. The worst thing in the world is not that I've had 3 cancers and all the surgeries. The worst thing in the world would be if God didn't use it for something. The theme of my life is, when I am weak, he is strong. If he can help me through hard things, he can help you through hard things. I'd like to sing a little bit of a song that's basically been the soundtrack to my life. It's a song by Hillsong called Oceans. You call me out upon the water, the great unknown, where feet may fail, and there I find you in the mystery. In oceans deep, my faith will stand, and I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. We didn't practice this part.
Vanessa, that was wonderful. And to sing that a cappella as well. I mean, that's remarkable. Man, I just don't know where to go with your testimony. You know, but these folks know I take copious notes, and I ran out of space. You know, as you were talking, the thing that comes to me is that you're writing a book, or you've written a book called The Vessel. Is that right?
The book's called It's a Meaningful Life, but the movie script is called The Vessel. It's actually based on my life. They're not exactly the same, that's why.
Okay. But you know what? The thought that came to me was she's sharing her story, her life, and this ordeal that God either allowed you to go through or put you through or whatever. It's and notice how Vanessa is, how close she is to the Lord. And see, God puts us through, man, you're tearing me up. God puts us through adversities. We've talked about this. God puts us through adversities for a reason. And in the moment, we don't know why it's happening. We don't want it to happen. We could be upset and angry when it's happening. I can't imagine you were happy anytime you were going in for any of these surgeries. But through the pain of it, through the need to cling to God, you came so much closer to Him. Closer than most of us will ever be. Because most of us aren't going through this kind of adversity. Most of us aren't going through this kind of pain. But God uses our pain for His glory. And your story is so powerful. And I'm going to read your book. And I'm going to watch your movie, and we're going to promote it here. So what do you do in terms of, you can't have all this that God has given you and not be sharing it with other people. So what are you doing in the realm of ministry?
This is my first time sharing this publicly.
Okay, so that's what the construction meeting is all about. You know how many people have been up here and have shared for the first time? And from this first time, you're going to share this with a whole lot of other people. And because you touched all of us. And the one thing, you see, you answered that proverbial question that when Rick read the Billy Graham thing this morning, and Billy Graham couldn't answer the question of why bad things happen. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why did all this happen to you? But God uses adversity to bring us closer to Him. Because God knows that this life is not all that there is. I mean, you have a lot of people that think that this is all that there is, and their lives are meaningless and empty. Vanessa knows that when it's her time to go, she knows exactly where she's going to be because she's been there through visions. And so this is the hope of our faith. And so God will put you through things. And you don't know why you're going through them, but if you could take a chapter, just listen to what Vanessa just shared with us and realize that God, if you let Him, God will use it to bring you closer to Him. And that's worth more than any adversity you went through. Right? So, all right, so from this moment on, you're going to be involved in some kind of ministry. And I don't know what you're going to be doing, but you are the answer to the question, why does God allow bad things to happen? Why are these things happening to me? Is because God will use them for His glory, and most importantly, use them to bring you closer to Him. We have a choice to make. When bad things happen, we have a choice. We can get angry and upset and shake a fist at God, or we can yield to the Holy Spirit. We can yield to God and let Him use it for our glory and, most importantly, for others. Because it's all about others. Right? You know, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And we're all your neighbors. And so, man, you tore me up. So thank you so much, Vanessa. And God bless you.
I'm standing here about and this morning I said, I'm glad it's not about me today. I might be nervous. It's about Him, and it's about all these beautiful people that have come with me today and have prayed for me through everything. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you.
Yeah. Life is a team sport, and you need a team. And that's what church is all about, folks. If you're not plugged into a church somewhere, you need to get plugged in. I'm glad you're plugged in here, but life is a team sport. Sometimes you need a team. Sometimes you need team players to help you through. And it's so remember that. You can't do it by yourself. You have to have a team. A lot of times family doesn't do it. Half the families are dysfunctional and unbelieving, and but the church becomes your family. The church becomes your family. And we're the family of God. So that's another important lesson, is that we don't get through it by ourselves. And it's you have to, who's your posse? You gotta have a posse. And so, and you got a big posse. Who's part of her posse here? Raise your hands if you're part of her posse. Look at that. Man, okay. So that's your family that's come to support you. And so amen. So thank you for sharing. And you all come back and visit us. We're here every Wednesday, rain or shine. Well, not snow, but rain. So thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm gonna mention a few things before we close out, and just one announcement is that some of you know I run around the country doing lectures on the Shroud of